The establishment have lost their minds over Bob Vylan's comments at Glastonbury. The duo have been smeared as anti-Semitic, which I doubt surprises any of you. However, Andrew Neil went even further and seemingly compared Bob Vylan to the Nazis. This is him engaging in what one could describe as Holocaust denial on talk radio.
Death, death to the IDF, shouted moronic rapper Pascal Robinson Foster at the Glastonbury Music Festival. A posh double-barrel name is perhaps not the best handle for a self-styled Rasta radical, so he goes by the name Bobby Vylan instead. We'll stick to his real name. As he strutted the stage, shirtless in his white underwear, mouthing his mantra, along with a generous dose of anti-Semitism, the Glasgow crowd dutifully repeated it again and again. I'm not sure what was worse, Mr. Robinson Foster's call for the death of Israeli Defense Forces or a mindless audience's brain-dead repetition of it. Since the IDF is all that stands between Israel's survival and it being wiped out by its Islamist enemies, to call for the death of the IDF is tantamount to advocating a second Holocaust. No doubt they hadn't quite thought that through. I was going to say that they sometimes seem to have more in common with a Nuremberg rally. But even the Nazis did not scream death to the Jews at their rallies, even if they thought it, and that was their intention. At Glastonbury, a generation which wallows in woke, never had to don a uniform to defend its country, and whose idea of danger is to risk reading or seeing something that might trigger it, well, that generation not only thought it said it out loud.
Now, I just want to correct myself. That was Times Radio, not Talk Radio, but that was absolutely insane. Now, the reason why Neil's comments could be seen as Holocaust denial is the fact that he said even the Nazis didn't say death to the Jews. I mean, they very much did. But to compare the chant, death to the IDF, which is an institution, a military force committing genocide, is in any way comparable to Nuremberg rallies and the Nazis, is not only disgusting, but incredibly insulting to everyone who was killed in the Holocaust. And also referencing one of the duos, the main singer of Bob Vylan, saying he's got a double-barreled name. I mean, the racist implication there is to say, whoa, he's black. That's a white-sounding name. I've seen a lot of people pick up on that, and it is. I think it's a definite racist thing to say. Kevin, it seems the establishment has a collective delusion, and the hysteria is only getting far, far worse.
Yeah, the political establishment, be it politicians or the media, have shown themselves, if anyone needed any further proof, how far they are from actually representing the nation they purport to describe and to lead. The overwhelming majority of people in the country oppose the actions of the IDF and of Israel more broadly, but you wouldn't know that from looking at the media or Parliament, who have fallen all over themselves to pearl clutch about Bob Vylan and Kneecap over the last few weeks. This is a genuinely embarrassing rant from a deluded old dinosaur in Mr. Neil. I don't even know where to start with him. Firstly, double-barrel names might seem posh to a white British guy, but in mixed-race families, and indeed in Afro-Caribbean families more broadly, the compound of the mother and father's surname to create a double-barrel name is a very, very common thing. It is not a posh thing at all. You reveal yourself for the old school pillock that you are there, Mr. Neil. Secondly, at no point did anyone at Glastonbury, as far as I'm aware, chant death to the Jews. I didn't hear that. I heard death to the IDF. IDF and Jewish are two separate things. They just are. As propagandists for Israel like to point out regularly, there are non-Jewish members of the IDF. So not all members of the IDF are Jewish, and indeed the vast majority of Jewish people in the world are not in the IDF. So they're clearly not synonymous things. That's ridiculous. And you have to go quite some way to try and conflate this as being anti-Semitic in any real way whatsoever. His Holocaust denial is pretty grotesque, considering the Nazis not only chanted death to the Jews, but then went and murdered over 6 million Jewish people. The idea that Bob Vylan are in any way comparable is a grotesque thing, and if I were Bob Vylan, I would be contacting lawyers and seeking, let's say, restitution, legally speaking, from Mr. Neil, because that was clear and obvious traducement of their name, and I think pretty obviously legal slander on Andrew Neil's part. But more broadly, this speaks to the disconnect between the political class in this country and the average person in this country. The reason that Zionists are so angry about this is not because they actually believe that what Bob Vylan said was anti-Semitic, because they clearly don't have a problem with anti-Semitism. They do it a lot themselves. The reason that they're so against this is that they saw the repetition of death to the IDF and free Palestine and from the river to the sea, not just on the stage during Kneecap and Bob Vylan's performance, but in various other people's performances at the festival, was that they saw the youth of both Britain and more broadly of the West turning against the very well-crafted and funded lie of Israel as the most moral country in the world and the IDF as the most moral army in the world. That's being rejected because everyone has seen for the past 18 months what has been true for the last 80 years, which is that Israel is a settler colonial genocidal endeavor, and people aren't going to put up with it anymore. And once that dam breaks, Israel knows that the very thing it needs to survive, contrary to Andrew Neil's nonsense point about the IDF being the only thing that stands in its way, is the fact that Western countries, most notably America, but also Germany and Britain and France, are there as the guarantor of the state of Israel, without which Israel would not survive on its own.
Yeah, quite right. I mean, Andrew Neil's defense, or I don't know if it was really defense, but he said, well, the reason why I'm comparing them to the Nazis is because the IDF is the last sort of line of defense against Islamist extremists who want to wipe them all out. And this is, and a part of a big tenet of Zionism is anti-Arab hatred and Islamophobia.
Yeah.
Because there are, I think, this is the way I think people on the right view this conflict, right, between Israel and Palestine, is that they think Israel is the defender of Judeo-Christian values and Palestine is defense or enforcement of Islam or Islamism. That's the way they see it, and that's the way they want it to be. In reality, it's nothing to do with that. It has nothing to do with religion for us. It's the fact that there is an ethnic cleansing, there's a genocide, and there's war crimes going on. The most heinous crimes that are imaginable are happening. I'm an atheist. I don't believe in God. I have no religion, and that means nothing to me. The religion aspect is nothing. It's about supporting human beings. It's a humanitarian crisis. But I think people on the right and a lot of the far right who love Israel, seemingly, it's it's kind of a sort of an entrance to their Islamophobia, and I think that's why they see it like that. And that is why I think they view pro-Palestine activists and the marches that happen every weekend. I think some of them are being truthful when they say, "Oh, it's an Islamist march." When I say truthful, as in they really believe that.
They believe that, yeah, nonsense, yeah. But I think many of them don't. There are a myriad of different ways in which one can find themselves on the side of Israel on this. Some are genuine believers, some are religious extremists, some are Jewish supremacists, and let's be honest, I think the majority of the British media and political class are bought and paid for shills. They've been bought and paid for. We know the amounts of money that have been given by pro-Israel lobbyists to members of the Labour Party. The Conservative Party don't even need to be bought out. They're actually just fans of ethno-colonialism, so they don't even need to be bribed. But we know how much AIPAC gives to American politicians and all the rest of it. I think we need to really start looking at the way in which the Israeli government, as a foreign government, as a foreign entity, has used its power and its wealth to infiltrate and to undermine democracy in the Western world, because they've essentially made any kind of independent foreign policy in the West, in West Asia, in the Middle East, as impossible for many nations, because all of their political classes don't represent the people and their views. They represent those of a very far right clique in Israel.
And I think what Andrew Neil was saying is disgusting and grotesque. And I think it insults those that were killed in the Holocaust to compare. Remember, this is not even an anti-Semitic chant. It's about a military.
Yeah, the IDF are not an ethnicity, so it's not racist.
They're not a protected characteristic, right? But even if he were to say something anti-Semitic, still to compare this to the Holocaust is grotesque and disgusting. But of course, Bob Vylan wasn't doing that, and no one's doing that.
But it's not surprising. Those who are pro-Israel are some of the most egregious of individuals when it comes to undermining the seriousness of the Holocaust. They will treat absolutely any minor opposition to the State of Israel or the IDF as being akin to the Holocaust. They consistently undermine the memory of those people who died, and indeed the survivors who are held up for propaganda reasons as being important Israelis, but are often actually treated like second-class citizens in Israel. This is nothing to do with the Holocaust. This is nothing to do with Judaism. This is to do with a small clique, unfortunately a growing clique, because they've had propaganda power over generations of Israelis now, of extremists, of Jewish supremacist extremists who want to enable the expansion of Israel for the benefit of tens of millions of evangelical Christians in the United States, who use their power to make sure that America funds said thing in a kind of triangle of bigotry, if you will.
Quite right. And I really, really hope that Bob Vylan sues Andrew Neil's ass.
Absolutely, yeah.
They need to lawyer up. He needs to lawyer up, because lawsuits need to start flying. We saw so many attacks over the years against Jeremy Corbyn, and of course he's probably too busy at the time when he was Labour leader to do anything about it, right? But these people need to start defending themselves, because these lies are so disgusting. It's the greatest McCarthyite campaign, I think, of our time.
Yeah, well, it goes beyond just Andrew Neil. I mean, the Daily Mail, for instance, literally quoted, it had in quotation marks that Bob Vylan had chanted death to Israelis, which he didn't say. That's a
literal factual error.
Yeah, on their front page in the headline. So yeah, I would lawyer up and I would be suing them for everything they're worth.
Support independent media. Support social justice that's there on social media. Thank you. Turn left.